Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're talking with Jane Collins. She is the founder and executive director of an organization called HEARD. Thank you so much for being here, Jane.
Thank you, Catherine.
So I am fascinated by this organization and how you have married life skills, the arts, and brought these skills and these people, an amazing team, to populations of marginalized people who need a different path forward. Give us a little background on where the idea for HEARD came from.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's actually two separate things happened. First of all, my mom's an artist, and she still paints, and she would walk over to Virginia and kill me if I gave her age out. However, and I've watched her paint my whole life, and as she displayed her work, and we're from a small town in Ohio, no matter how low she charged her work, because she wanted people to be able to afford her paintings. And although she's won first place, best of shows, her stuff has traveled the country, she was always very affordable. People would always try to talk down her price, and it would leave her so demoralized. And so that, if we put that in, that's one perspective I'm coming from, that has always bothered me, and I just hated to see my mom feel that way. Secondly, I live in Old Town Alexandria. And it's not uncommon when you're walking up and down King Street to see people who at least appear to be homeless or housing insecure. And as I walk by them, I would think about everyone is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, including HEARD. Everyone has a blog. Everyone's out there, competing for attention in all the cyberspace. And I thought, these people probably don't have a platform to express themselves, but their stories are just as valid as everybody else's. Their stories are worthy of being heard. I guess there's a third part to that, is living in Old Town, which is very, very philanthropic. I tried to find the unmet need in Alexandria, which is hard because there is a lot of good work done there. And I could not find a real venue where marginalized adults, the people who maybe got passed over when they needed help as kids, and that led to maybe bad choices or bad luck. No creative artistic outlets for them. So I put these three stories together, and I came up with HEARD, which is a nonprofit. I call it Life Skills Disguised as Art for Marginalized Adults. And I pay artists to bring and to teach creativity to marginalized adults so they can be heard.
And you do that in such a wide variety of ways. I think people are probably familiar that a lot with art therapy, particularly for children, because children often are too young to be able to articulate with words the things that they need people to understand. And so art therapy, I think people understand that this is a way of helping children to process and to be able to share what happened to them. And so they do that through drawings. But what you brought together is so many different varieties of artists. And that's creative writing, that is poets, that's dance, that's music. And that's what fascinates me the most, is the way that you have broadened this idea that marginalized people have so many avenues through art to try to share or explain or process their experiences.
And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. We specifically begin each class, and I explain this to my program partners. We are not therapists. This is not therapy. We're not trained as therapists. Maybe a couple of us are, but that's sort of a secret. But what we do is just give them the opportunity to be creative. And so that's the reason we go through program partners. So if something happens, maybe there's a writing prompt that would trigger somebody, and we try very hard not to do that, obviously, and some of it's been trial and error. We want to make sure we can reach out to the program director or a social worker within immediately, or at least within 24 hours, and say, we kind of noticed somebody appeared a little triggered. And so as I bring an artist in, we talk about triggering. We talk about triggering when we bring on program partners. And what we say is, we're not therapists, but we go by the reasonable person standard.
I think that's a good standard.
If somebody appears, visibly to be, shaking, putting their hands over their ears, abnormal behavior, given the context of what some other story someone may be sharing or what type of artwork they produced, we'll say, I'm concerned about you. We're going to let somebody know. And the other thing we tell our classes is, your safety is our number one concern. So it isn't what happens here stays here. At the same time, we don't report to the nonprofit or government staff what we saw, because we just come in and do our art
It's a safe
and
space.
go home.
It's
Yeah,
a safe
it's a safe
space.
space. But if you do appear to be triggered or say something that makes a reasonable person think, oh my gosh, I think somebody with
extra
a
attention.
social worker should
Yeah.
know about this, we'll let them know. And that's happened maybe 2 or 3 times in 3 years.
Right. So when we met, we didn't realize that we had mutual friends.
Right.
And Friends of Guest House is one of our mutual friends.
You
we
bet.
both worked
They're
with
awesome.
with this organization.
Uh-huh.
The largest, I love to tell people, it's the largest program for women formerly incarcerated in Virginia, and they can handle 29 people at a time, which gives you some idea of how we have inadequate programs for women returning from jail and prison.
You bet. 45 years.
It's incredible. And Carrie Galloway and her team do such a great job. And
Yeah.
one of the things they do is they try to bring people in from the outside.
Right.
And so I have hosted 3 different events where women have told their stories. And various people have helped them to do that. Describe a little bit about, these people. I'm so impressed. If people go to your website, they will see the bios
Right.
of the artists that you have working with you. And I was astonished at where you found these people. Where did you find these people?
Well, for the most part, they found me. And I've been really lucky that way. But what I try to do, and we'll get into program replication in the second half of the show, is to find local artists and get funding locally. Some of that is self-funded, some of that is from local grants to help local people in need. So I just like to keep it kind of small and tight, so it's more of a community endeavor.
Right, homegrown. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's homegrown.
Yes. Well, it started out as a life story program called Sharing Our Stories, and we set it up with me and a couple of writers. And then Guest House was one of our early program partners, and then I started thinking, what else? Improvisation is
Yes.
so powerful. And I'd taken improv classes at the Little Theater of Alexandria. So I asked Keely Kirk, who is a fabulous improv instructor. She's trained with Second City. She does corporate events. She's just amazing. She's been teaching improv to the women of Guest House, and this is our only non-adult partner, the kids at the Northern Virginia Juvenile Detention Center.
Wow.
And their volunteer director says the only time those kids laugh is when they go to improv.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. It is so healing and so powerful. And learning is always more fun when you're laughing.
True.
And from there, someone needed a visual artist. Now we have dance. We started etiquette this year.
I was fascinated by that.
Isn't that cool?
And when you say that, it's kind of like, first of all, I didn't realize that there were actual experts in this.
Oh, you bet.
But you have one.
I do.
An
Very good one.
international
Yes.
expert on protocol. And the fact that that is where people do get tripped up, is not understanding the context. So I had this great aunt, Auntie Alice.
Okay.
And she was just so much about etiquette in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
And so she was always instructing us on how to use finger bowls, believe it or not,
Oh, my.
and things like that. And we would think it was so stuffy and it was ridiculous. We were
Right.
kids, and it'd be like, this is so ridiculous. But Auntie's position on etiquette is that when everybody knows the rules, then no one gets tripped up and no one is embarrassed when everybody knows the rules. But etiquette has really fallen out of favor. My mother used to have the Amy Vanderbilt book of
Right.
etiquette, how to write a thank you note, how to introduce yourself, how to shake hands, or she knew all the things.
Yeah.
But now we don't pay much attention to etiquette.
And Marcy Lash, our etiquette expert, is so good. And what she will tell you is etiquette is about kindness. It's about respect. It's not about, that whole
Stuffy
stereotype
and-
of being
yeah.
snobby. But she's actually teaching an etiquette series now at Guest House. And I'm excited because next week is the Thursday before Thanksgiving. We're doing Awkward Question Day.
Oh, what a marvel. So many people could use this.
Yes, all of us.
Thanksgiving is just a minefield.
Right? Right, and some of the women and all of us, are going back to home to maybe see old friends, family, and there's always awkward questions. So how do you answer the awkward question without being triggered, without being angry? And this is an exercise for all of us.
Right, true.
So that'll be fun.
Well, I like the fact that you are right. Etiquette should be based in kindness, and this is something that my mother always believed: is you put other people at ease. That's how she
Exactly.
looked at etiquette. It was like everybody should be comfortable and made to feel comfortable. And so, she I hope she taught us well. I try to do that.
Yeah.
But if you don't come from a family where people teach you that, then how do you know?
Right, right. And that's what Marcy teaches, and she's so good at it.
So all of these different aspects too, you know, when you've got artists coming in like dance, how in the world do you incorporate dance? Not everybody sees themselves as a dancer. I don't.
Yeah, well, Tina is fabulous. As it turned out, some of our program partners had asked me for dance, and I'm thinking, how do I get a dancing teacher? How do I get a dancing teacher? In the meantime, I'm hanging out with my friend Tina, forgetting she was a professional dancer.
Oh, wow.
You know, football cheerleader, she taught NBA cheerleaders dance. She's had students that have gone into Dance with the BET, with Jay-Z, in major movies.
Wow.
This woman can teach. So, you know, the answer is always right in front of you. So,
Isn't it funny? That's true.
yeah. So I asked her to teach a dance class, and we had our first one last week. She was amazing. And you're right, some of the women, some of them were on it. You know, they just loved it. Some of them were a little uncomfortable, but she's so good. She got them out of their comfort zone. And, you know, then there's always a couple that they're just not having it.
Yeah.
But, you know, and this is true of any of the population that we work with. And so they just sit in the back. They're allowed to watch. But, you know, maybe next time, maybe they'll try something. Maybe they'll do a warm-up with us. But at least they see their friends and their peers out there dancing. And it's so important just in terms of, you know, loving your body and feeling your body move. And, you know, it is an art, and it is exercise. And I'm just so thrilled we've brought dance into our repertoire of services.
I just think it's amazing that you have raised the power of the arts.
Oh, thank you.
You really have. It's kind of like the arts are so powerful. We all know that. We know how we feel when we look at beautiful paintings, or when we read a compelling story, or we hear music that stays with us, and we know that that has a real impact on us as people. But why don't we see that bringing it to marginalized people or people struggling, that it can be just as healing and just as powerful? I think you have just put together an organization that is inspiring, certainly inspiring me to see it differently.
Well, it's life skills. Like, for example, improv is wonderful in teaching people conflict resolution in a very fun way. You know, you'll be put in these scenarios under Keeley's very thoughtful professional guidance. You'll go through these scenarios and you'll learn how to diffuse conflict. And I've had executive directors of our partners come back and tell me stories of hearing their clients practice improv because of our classes, and where tensions may have escalated, now they don't.
That is amazing. And when we come back from our break, Jane, we are going to talk further about this. And I hope all of you at home will join us after our break, because HERD is such a remarkable organization, and it is bringing something to our community that we need to pay attention to. And she's going to have some suggestions about how all of us can set this up in our own communities. So join us after the break.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is gonna help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today I'm talking with Jane Collins. She is the founder and executive director of a marvelous local organization called HERD. Jane, when we went to break, you were talking about the improv program and how well people have used those improv skills to learn conflict resolution.
Right.
Talk a little bit about some of the other programs and your program partners, and give some examples to help people understand.
Okay, we've got about 10 partners and 10 artists. For example, we partner with, again, Friends of Guest House. They're our most consistent program partner. We also have pretty recurring programs at the Alexandria and the Arlington County Detention Centers. We do visual arts there, we do improv, we do some writing. And in both the detention centers, this year was our second year of having the writing contest. So we did fiction, nonfiction, poetry. We do it in the summer. We have prizes. Last year, one of the local network affiliates came and filmed one of our award ceremonies. It's been very, very powerful. We do visual arts, we do poetry. We have one of our artists writes for the Washington Post and People magazine.
Really?
And she's created a 4-part series called Think Like a Journalist, which is interesting because mostly creative writing is prompt-based, you know, what's on your mind? Look at the bottle of water, write a story. But hers is more like critical thinking. Take an opposing view on something, ask deep questions, just tons of life skills in that. And I want to say something real quick because this was so impactful. I was in one of our partners a couple of months ago, and a woman came up to me and said, "Are you Mrs. Collins?" And of course I'm like, oh gosh, no. But as it turned out, she had won an award at the writing contest at one of the detention centers the year before. And she said, "Thank you for making me feel like a human."
Wow.
And I thought, that's why we do this work.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
you know, everybody has something to offer. Personally, I believe truly that every human being is an artist.
That's what we tell them. You're
Every
all
human being
creative.
is an artist and creative, and how we express it is very different. But having people be able to express themselves in a way they want to, and to have it recognized and appreciated, I can see where people finally feel heard, seen and heard, like they're not invisible, and their experience isn't invisible either.
And we work with domestic violence survivors, sexual assault survivors, the LGBTQA community of Alexandria. We work with women who need a second chance. We work with all marginalized adults, as many as we can.
Right.
Just to give all of them that opportunity to know that we know you're creative, and the confidence that comes out of watching themselves write a story or draw a picture. Sometimes the look on their faces is all that we need to just validate that we are part of helping these people become whole again.
And I like the fact that A, it's voluntary. They can choose what to do or
Right.
whether to do it.
Yeah.
The second thing is for themselves. Like they're writing or dancing or performing or writing a poem or for themselves, and yet they have the option, they have a choice to share that with other people or
It's always-
more broadly.
It's always a choice, especially in the story writing and the poetry, of course. They always have a chance to share, but they never, ever have to. And a lot of times they help us co-create the program. Like going back to the etiquette class, we met with the staff, we met with the residents of Guest House and said, what do you need? Let's put something together. And that way, of course, you're more invested if you're part of the class.
Absolutely. And I think we don't, as you said in your example of the homeless person and the fact no one hears their stories
Right.
because they don't have a platform
Right.
for people to understand how they got there. Because we don't often stop to ponder the fact that no one was born and grew up thinking they'd be homeless or incarcerated.
Right.
Or, you know, and that's not what any of us planned for.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, how did people end up where they ended up?
Yeah.
We should be more interested
Yeah.
in how people ended up where they are.
Yeah, and sometimes their stories are completely not that. But you know, our website is live, but it just became live a week ago, and I haven't actually officially launched it. I guess this is the official launch.
I tell you, it looks good. I went and looked at it yesterday. It looks good.
Thank you, but we'll see stories and you will see art. And there's so much more in there that, you know, when I get the time, I will be populating more of that. We have pictures of improv, we have pictures of etiquette, we have pictures of drawing. You know, it will get on that site and we'll give them the platform. Interestingly, at the Arlington County Detention Center writing contest this year, after the ceremony, some of the inmates came up and said, okay, now I want my story out there. I want my story published. And at that point I could say, I can do that. As, you know, wait till the website's ready. And now it is.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
They
But
want to be heard.
I'm glad that that's a voluntary thing too. It's
Yes.
like, I give you permission to
Yes.
share my artwork or my story
Right.
or
And we
with
do
other
the media
people.
releases and, you know, we do all those things.
That's
but-
fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the fact that this is a very local program.
Yes.
Arlington, Alexandria.
Right.
And you want it to stay that way.
I do.
Organically grown, organically created.
Yes,
So how would you encourage
yes.
other people in other places to adopt your framework
Yeah.
and make it their own?
Yes. Well, I can give you a few things. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself here because at one point I will have a way to replicate the program on my website. It's not there yet, but you can always hit the contact button and I can talk to you, set up a Zoom interview or something. But really all you need is, every community has artists, every community has people in need. And so we serve 2 levels, especially if you're able to pay artists, which I think is so important. Not everybody does that or can do that, but it's just the way, again, I want to keep things local. You need to know what the local needs are. You need to be able to maybe work through a church. Liability is a big thing. As a nonprofit, we do have to get liability insurance because we're going into
That's generally the
at-risk
most,
places.
working
Yeah.
with so many nonprofits, that's our most expensive budget item,
It is.
liability insurance.
Right. But if you partner like with a church or with a bigger nonprofit that will take you as a program, then they have the top cover for you.
That's a good suggestion, really good.
Yeah, I would not suggest starting your own nonprofit.
Right.
Because it's more work than I thought. But
to be a program.
yes, to be a program. We were a program for 2 years under the Delray Community Partnership, and they were so good to us. And now we have become our own nonprofit. But this is something I can run from my phone. You know,
Right.
I've gone on vacations, I've traveled, I have the partnerships, the classes all set up, and I've literally run it from my phone.
But it comes down to 2 things. Finding somebody who has a passion equal to
Yes.
yours,
Yes.
who understands how to find the resources, and then the will
Yes.
to create. So you actually did this in Ohio, correct?
Yes, my hometown in Ohio, Bellefontaine, Ohio. I went back there last summer. My mother still lives there, and my brother and his wife. And I met with some of the community leaders who I've known since high school. And I talked about what I did, brought the form, shared it with them electronically. And what I said was, I don't want to start another herd clone. I don't want to be the national director. I am way too lazy for that. But I want to plant the seed so all communities can say, what's the need here? What are the resources here? How can we take this idea and tailor it and make it work just for us? So I got a text from somebody, from one of them a couple of months ago, and they've started working with women in the prison system, the jail system, who had heroin addiction. And it's sort of a mind, body, soul program where they've started whiteboard visioning, they've started a running club, and they've started a faith component. And they said, we would have never done this had we not talked to you. So
it's proof of concept.
Exactly.
Your concept worked where you are, and
Yes.
the concept worked where they are.
Right.
But they made it their own using
exactly.
what they had and the people they had and the resources they had.
Right. So I hope to bring on a social media manager soon, and that person's job will be to engage with the arts platforms and communities across the U.S., help plant that seed, and then by that time, hopefully I'll have a little more how-to on the website. But if anybody is interested, they can just shoot me an email, get on the contact form on the site, and I'd be happy to give them a call, and we'll see what they need. We'll see what the need is.
And the variety of artists also vary from community to community.
Oh, absolutely.
But the fact that
Absolutely.
you are committed to paying artists, and I am with you.
Yeah.
I do not, every time someone suggests that we should find somebody to donate their services, to design a logo or to do a flyer or whatever, it's kind of like, no, those people have talent. It's a skill, and it isn't for free.
And I ask, when your lawyer gives you a fee, do you say, well, I'll give you half of that?
Yeah.
Nobody does that. And my artists have said, thank you for doing this. It just goes to show you get it. And it's not, you can't live off of it. It's just more of a token. It's just more of an appreciation for their time, their talent, wear and tear on the car, babysitters, materials,
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yes.
So you might even call it an honorarium. But the point
Exactly.
is, an honorarium is to honor the fact
Yes.
that someone has something of value
Yeah.
that they're sharing.
I like that term.
Well,
I'm going to start using that.
An honorarium.
Yeah.
It means you're not going to be able to live off this.
Right.
You can't pay your mortgage with it. But I
Exactly.
am honoring the fact that you
Yeah.
have something of value, and we
Yeah.
want to compensate you for sharing your time and your talent.
Yeah.
And I believe in that. And I
Yes.
think that artists, there's the struggling artist is real. The
Right.
struggling artist is real.
Yeah.
People trying to make a living off of their art. And there's a lot of artists who don't. They have a day job and they do their art on the side until, they can figure out how to make it work. But these people are in every community.
And what I love about HERD is we're not only helping the marginalized adults, believe and see that they're creative and believe and see in themselves and to give them life skills, we're also supporting the arts community by giving them an honorarium, as you say, to say your work is of value, it is worthy of compensation. And because there is some compensation here, that is why we have such fabulous people on our team.
You do, and of course that necessitates applying for grants, you know, and there's grant
Yes.
money out there,
Yes.
especially in this particular area. But even the smallest giving circle or faith communities, there's lots
Right.
of people who have money that they provide in small amounts to support efforts like this that really benefit the community.
Yeah, and there is a donate button on our website. How about that?
How about that?
Yeah,
Well, and the fact that you're a nonprofit makes a difference too.
yes.
But I think the takeaway really here, though,
Right.
is that you're doing something unique. You're helping people who've been through trauma or a very tough time find their inner artist, because all of us were born artists. Innately, we all have something unique, and we all create, or we have the opportunity to create. And your organization is really bringing people together to help these folks understand, you know, how to be heard and how to be seen.
And when you hear some of the stories in the poems, you're like, holy smokes, what a talented human being. It's amazing. Some of the most gifted artists I've seen are in the jails, the prison system.
Isn't that amazing?
Just amazing, yeah. And the women, mostly women, that have said, I used to journal, I used to write music, I used to draw, and life got in the way. And to just watch them rediscover that skill in themselves is so rewarding.
Well, I feel very rewarded that you came here and shared this with us, Jane, because
thank you.
otherwise I'm not sure I would have heard about you. So thank you to the fates that brought us together, and I hope the folks here at home are also inspired, because we don't have this program in Fairfax County. You know, we need to find the people who have the vision or who are willing to put together the network of artists and the resources and to replicate what HEARD is doing, because it is making a difference in people's lives. And this is what you need to know.